Straw Hut Media.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Genuinely Gigi. As you know, I am with my kooky crazy friend, Anita.
Hi, hello everyone.
Who is unfortunately suffering from a little migraine. So I puffed a lot of weed in her face and she's very happy right now. So don't mind her.
Yes.
She's going to be fine. Don't worry. I'm going to get right into it because I'm really excited about today's episode because it's something very personal for me.
Mm-hmm.
It is about hearing loss and the different types of hearing loss and the survival mechanisms that people like myself have to gain because of our hearing loss. We have Lance Allred, which is the NBA's first legally deaf player ever in history.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about, how he grew up with his hearing loss and being in the NBA with his hearing loss and afterwards.
Yeah.
As well as pediatric audiologist Dr. Michelle Hu, which is also a cochlear implant recipient. She has it. She grew up also deaf, and now she is an audiologist. We have such different stories between us, such different things to share, and I'm really excited to get into it.
Yeah, me too.
Let's do it.
You know her from Shaws of Sunset. You know she doesn't hold back.
You being a gay son to a colonel like that's a lot of people are like, wow, what's that got to be like? Did you have to hide it? Was he open with it? Did they give them shit when inside?
This is Genuinely Gigi.
I like to talk about conversations that a lot of people don't discuss particularly. And a lot of them have to do with maybe my lifestyle or things that I've gone through and experienced. And today that conversation is about, I was born with an abnormal hearing loss and I have about 28% hearing. And I read something about you being the first NBA player in history to be considered legally deaf. I mean, huge deal, for someone like me, and I'm sure the community. But in general, that's a huge deal. So I want to really go into, how you got to that point, living through that point and all that. So let's start from the beginning. Where are you from? Tell me what it was like growing up.
Well, you asked, so I'll share. I was born and raised in a polygamous cult in Montana. And I was born in my grandmother's house. And at that time in 1981, rural Montana in the backwoods, we were waiting for Jesus to come again. We're not really paying attention to medical issues such as RH incompatibility. If you're familiar with that, my mother was a negative blood type and I'm a positive blood type. And so her body was recognizing me as a parasite and was killing me off.
Okay.
And so when I was born, I was nearly dead and I had to be rushed out of the commune to tiny Hamilton, Montana, where there was a Johns Hopkins educated resident who just happened to be specializing in RH himself because he was an RH baby too. And so I was in an incubator for 3 weeks. My bilirubin titer count was off the charts. I should have been dead. So I'm very lucky to be alive. And the doctor did warn my parents that some of the side effects can be like spinal bifida, other things, but also hearing loss, because the nerves in my ears are never fully developed due to the RH factor. Or the blood changes, we're not quite sure which one it was exactly. And so born and raised in rural Montana with about 80% hearing loss. So
At
20
which,
to
was it
25.
gradual? Was it a gradual loss or was it when it happened, it happened?
It happened. I've always been this way. I've always had this. And so I've always lived in a very quiet world.
Okay.
And there were no amenities to learn sign language in rural Montana, being the only deaf kid within 100 miles. And so I had to learn to be put out of my comfort zone every day, to wear my hearing aids, go to speech therapy 3 times a week until I was 16 years old to speak this way. And so you might understand this expression, Gigi. Living with an invisible disability sometimes is a double-edged sword.
Oh, honey, I have 2 invisible disabilities, unfortunately. So I understand that, saying more than you can understand. But yeah, I do. I get it. It's hard. It's hard when people don't understand our world because our world frustrates them.
It does. And we make people uncomfortable without even trying.
Right. And so we begin isolating ourselves to not hurt other people.
Yeah, that's what outliers do. At first, we think there's something wrong with us, and then we try very hard to be normal.
Right.
And the more and more we try to be normal, the more and more we keep doing exceptional things. And so you keep hopping over the medium into outlier to there's variance on the edges, on the fringes there, without even trying. And you continually polarize people just because, in many ways, one, people see, okay, she was supposed to be a mediocre person with a disability staying inside her bubble. But look, Gigi keeps going out and doing remarkable things, making me feel like I'm not doing anything with my life. And so therefore, they're going to project onto you and resent you when you yourself are like, wait, no, it's just my own insecurity trying to fit in. And so after a while, you realize that you're not going to win either way. And you know how it goes, that you can talk like a deaf person like us, like when I was a kid, and people think you're an idiot.
Right.
Or you can talk like this and people think you're an asshole when you don't respond to them.
Right. When you're feeling uncomfortable and it's not an easy situation to ask them to repeat themselves because the moment is past or everyone already laughed or had a response to it. So you can't say, oh, what was that? So I just be like, oh yeah, I just, and then that's not the response you were supposed to give.
Nope.
It's just,
or you find yourself committing to things that you know what you're committing to.
Yeah. So tell me, Lance, at which age did you get hearing aids?
I got hearing aids when I was 18 months old. And back in the 80s, if you recall, so you were born in 81 as well, right, Gigi?
I was, yes.
Yeah, 81. So we're the child of the 80s. And so back then it was just analog, blasted sound. And I hated my hearing aids because they gave me constant splitting headaches. And the background ambiance was just as loud as anyone's immediate vocal to you. And so it was just so overwhelming. So any chance I could get, I would take them out and just hide them. One, insecurity, people noticing I was different, but also it was just sometimes just leave me alone. I want to sit in silence. And hats off to my mother. I fought her tooth and nail every day when she made me wear my hearing aids, made me go to speech therapy. And I didn't tell her thank you until I was 21 years old.
Wow.
And she wasn't expecting a thank you, but all of the brunt that she took from me gave me a fighting chance to live the life I wanted to live as an adult.
Right.
And as you understand, Gigi, it's hard being a bridge.
Yes, it is.
When you live in between worlds.
Yeah.
But that intersectionality is what is needed in this world, that right now when it's so polarized, that we need people with these silent disabilities that know how to reach across the divides and be able to connect with other people and help them learn to have compassion and empathy in a world that desperately needs it.
That's right. I agree with you 100%. And I mean, oh my God, it's so well said coming out of your mouth. And I see why you're such a successful speaker on stages and everything that you do, motivational speaking everywhere that you go. I really praise that a lot. I read somewhere that in college, when you were playing basketball, that you felt that you didn't get enough playtime because of your hearing disability. Were you not wearing hearing aids or was that just them profiling you out because of it?
That's a very long, complicated story that I'll do my best to explain. My family escaped polygamy when I was 13 years old. We went into hiding when my father blew the whistle on child abuse and money laundering. And that's when I started playing basketball because all my cousins, 400 plus first cousins, had been my best friends. And I had to find a way to adapt and fit into this new world. But even though we had broken away from polygamy, I still had this deeply embedded story that at the age of 5, I had a Sunday school teacher impress upon me that God had made me deaf as a form of punishment. And so I had this story, this subconscious story driving me that I had to do something superhuman and then God would be proud of me and I'd be worthy of love. And we're all driven by these stories. Right. And sometimes you don't stop and ask, is this story necessarily true, until the pain becomes too much. And I'll get to that in a bit. But that story was such a driving factor that once I started playing basketball, I now had the story that I had to be the first deaf player in the NBA, and then God would be proud of me. And so that's what I dove into. No dating, no girlfriends. I was very shy with my speech and hearing anyway, and dove into basketball. And in 1998, I got a scholarship to the University of Utah, at the time a top 5 program. They had lost in a national championship game that year. And at first, my relationship with Coach Majerus was a brilliant relationship, beautiful relationship. He was a mastermind coach, and I was the type of player that could never do enough, because again, in my mind, I was playing for my eternal soul. Mm-hmm. That I had to do something remarkable to receive love. And so at first it was a perfect match, but then his sophomore year, his mother got cancer, Coach's mother got cancer, and he began to unravel and got really personal and began to call me things like a disgrace to cripples. And if I was in a wheelchair and I started to play basketball, I'd shoot myself. And I had to learn to play basketball in a different way. I couldn't play basketball with my hearing aids in due to sweat and concussion issues. So I was out there pretty much stone deaf, just learning to keep my head on a swivel, read people's body language and trust in the intuition, and learn to, again, the body language, the body never lies. As you know this, Gigi, words can lie, the body never lies.
Right.
And so learning to watch people allowed me to play the game in a very different way. And that is what allowed me to be unique and have the career that I had. But you're still very vulnerable, especially when you're trusting these coaches. That's like, oh, well, Coach Majerus is going to help me get to the NBA. So I got to put him on a pedestal, because I didn't know how to be a leader of my own life, because I was expecting external circumstances or trophies to give me validation.
Right.
And that would mean I was worthy of love. And that was the game I was playing for so long.
Right.
And so Majerus would do things like that and finger spell it just so there's no miscommunication. Lance, capital C-U-N-T, that's what you are. And so it wasn't, I never claimed, and this is where the language gets weird, but this is where the lawyers would kick in. I never filed a lawsuit against Majerus. The University of Utah launched its own investigation to see if he had, quote, discriminated against me. Discrimination would have been Majerus not playing me because I had hearing loss. That's not what he did. He simply used my hearing loss as a means to belittle and humiliate me and isolate me from the team. So
isn't that the same thing?
Yeah, sexual harassment is not discrimination. It is, however, against the law. Is belittling other people for disabilities discrimination? No. But is it against the law? Not quite.
Right. That's really, it's inhumane. Is what it is. It's wrong. And people don't realize that what they're doing has many, many, many years, sometimes a lifetime of an aftershock for us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back...
What is your shoe size?
15.
So the question is it true what they say about the size of your feet?
I've never had any complaints. We'll just say that.
I did see that when you were with the Cavaliers, that you said that they picked up more on using hand signals during the game and whatnot. Was that a fun thing?
Yeah, I've had good coaches that trusted hand signals. The Cavaliers and the minor league team before that, when I was called up to the NBA, that here's what I would tell these coaches that was so paranoid. They're like, oh, we can't let the other team know the play we're running. I'm like, you only have 24 seconds to run a play. Mm-hmm. And if you run a good offense, the defense has to give you something. That if you run the screen and roll, someone's going to be open. They may isolate the weakest shooter, but they're giving you something. And so the good coaches who were confident in their system had no problem bringing me in to the fold, because they knew that their system was strong, and they knew, again, with my ability to watch people and recognize patterns quickly, that I was going to learn the offense of the systems very quickly. That even if the hand signal was not called, I could look around and see, okay, small forwards on the right block, that means we're running 14 high. Right. And then I would pick up where we were at and go from there. And so, but here's the thing too, is that in the fourth quarter of a loud arena, everyone's deaf.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
In the land of temporary deafness, the permanently deaf man is king.
Yeah. That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
learning, but that's the thing is most people quit by halftime, but you just stick around long enough, whatever disability you have, you stick around long enough, eventually the tables will turn and a window of opportunity will come your way.
And what has that window been for you?
That it was, I did not make the NBA until I was 27 years old. That's 7 years longer than the average rookie. 7 years of heartbreak and disappointment and people telling me you can't do it. My very first game as a basketball player in 8th grade when I started playing as a way to adapt after his family escaped polygamy, I was ejected because the ref thought I was ignoring him.
Wow.
And people then said, oh no, he's too deaf. He can't do this. And I said, watch me.
Wow.
And I started writing down my goals and I put them above my light switch. Lance Allred will be the first deaf player in the NBA. I will get a scholarship at the University of Utah. I will be a published author. And every time I touched my light switch on or off, I'd read them out loud. And have my dreams looked exactly the way I thought they were going to look? Absolutely not.
Right.
But they've come true in some way, shape, or form. And so trusting in the laws of perseverance and resilience, that is not the strongest or the smartest or the fastest who necessarily survive, is those who are most willing to adapt. And adapting is what is needed at this time, that we have so many people wanting to hold on. They want things to go back to the way they were, but that's not how nature works. Never once that's how it's worked.
Right.
And also you see all these sports fans who also wanted to go back to the way it used to be. But I'm like, you're failing to learn the lesson that what sports is teaching you.
Right.
That it's those who are most willing to adapt to the changes in the game that win. And you're not seeing that lesson in the broader spectrum.
That's right.
And so I understood with my high threshold of discomfort that I will acknowledge this right on, that my mother putting me outside of my comfort zone every day at a very early age gave me a high threshold of discomfort. So that's what allowed me to toil for 7 extra years of heartbreak and frustration to make the MBA.
Well, I want to, if I can ask you a little bit about that. I'd like to know, when you were younger and taking your hearing aids off and putting them on, what was life like when they were off? What does your hearing sound like? Because there's so many different types of hearing losses and we all hear things so differently. What is your world like without any hearing devices?
Best way I can articulate it, it's very quiet, but I always kind of have like a dull ringing.
A ringing?
A ringing, a dull ringing. That's what I can hear, but it's like internal.
Okay.
And if I'm not looking at you without my hearing aids, I'm not going to hear you, unless if you're right behind me and you're a male voice.
Okay.
So my father, I could always hear my father speaking to me. I could never hear what he was saying, but if he was close to me, I could hear him in the room and I could look at him, then I could read his lips.
Right.
So the best way to articulate it, from what I hear with my hearing aids in, and you watch enough movies or whatnot, it sounds like you're constantly underwater. And when someone speaks, if you can hear the deeper tones, if they have a deeper tone and I can hear it, it sounds like the teacher from Charlie Brown.
That's a very good. Okay. Way to put it.
For me, it's very different. I have an abnormal case where mine is a reverse downslope. So the place that everyone usually has a loss is where I have the perfect strength, and I have the other. I can't understand speech. So my issue is not sound; it's understanding what that sound is. I can't understand sounds. They all sort of blend together, becomes like a one based tone. I didn't get hearing aids until much older. Part of the reason being my family wasn't even aware for a long time that I had a hearing loss. I found it out through my friend's mother was suggesting it to my parents that I get tested. It was just, they were very oblivious, I think, to it because I was very functional, because I was reading lips, because I was born with it. So I knew no other way to operate. Right. But I did realize I was getting in trouble in school all the time. I was always not paying attention when someone was calling my name, and someone was always mad saying, stop ignoring me. I'm like, I didn't hear you. Like, oh, you're a liar. Go to your room. You know what I mean? So I went through years and years of that. And it was never something, when they did find out, it was never something that was, let's figure out a way that's going to work. Let's figure out what you are comfortable with. It was, do you want to get a hearing aid? I'm like, I'm not doing it. You can kill me and I'm not going to fucking do it. And that was it. And I never needed to get a hearing aid. And I didn't until I was about 32, 33 years old, maybe. And I have, the ones I have are the lyrics, which are not great quality, but they're the easiest ones because the doctor puts them in and takes them out. I don't have to keep, doing that myself, and I can get in the shower with it, but it's just not the quality. But I'll tell you, I had season tickets. Don't get mad. My dad and I used to be Clippers fans.
Used to be.
Yeah, we used to get season tickets all the time to the Clippers. So once I got my hearing devices and I would go to the game, oh, it was like torture. It was much easier to hear things without my hearing devices. Going into that arena, the sound, it was not bizarre. It was as if everything would go silent because it was too many sounds for my device to break down.
You couldn't
No, I can't adjust them. They're placed in with the doctor. Yeah, I can't.
Wow.
So it's like our hearing is so different, but then I can hear a phone ringing 2 houses down.
Interesting.
It's a very, it's an abnormal hearing loss.
So I got to be careful when I talk shit about you.
Well, I can read your lips. Do you read lips, Lance?
Yeah, I am a lip reader. And
you are.
That's how I mostly function. Because even with my hearing aids in, if I'm not looking at your lips, it's like, I'll have to look at you. And, that's the thing is when you learn to become so high functioning, even your family members forget. And they'll get irritated and frustrated with me. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. I'm not, just make sure I'm looking at you. And your point that you make too, of the overwhelm of sound, hearing aids just shut down. That's another reason why I never played with them in, because the auditory sound at the Jumbotron and the speakers and the crowd, they would just shut down. And so like, well, I can't play with them in, even for concussion issues or sweat damage. It's just, they're just not going to work in a loud arena. And that's the thing is, your body has adapted and has shown how resilient it is in adjusting to the world around it. So when one sense is compromised, the others kick in. So my sense of feel is through the roof. My eyesight and smell and taste are all exceptional. And so there are many times that, like people think that I always want to be hearing, and like, oh, well, Lance, you want to get the deep inner ear ones that are always on? I'm like, no, thank you. Because I like being able to take my hearing aids out at the end of the day and have everything just be quiet. And I can meditate or just contemplate or reflect and have that internal reflection time. Yeah, I have a magnetic stick that if I need to mute it, I can stick it's a magnetic stick that goes in and it goes beep, beep, and it just goes mute.
So, okay.
Yeah, but there's no taking it out. There's no, and I had an unfortunate situation where my, when they go out, the battery just dies. It's now a plug on top of that little 28% hearing that I do have. It's a plug in there. So it gets really tough. It gets really tough. I know you've, written 5 books. You are a very successful motivational speaker. You go around, to different camps, different children's facilities that are suffering with these type of situations, and you give them motivation. And I loved this thing I read about you in, what's it called? The NGSC Sports. And they asked you your favorite moment of being in the league. And this is what his response was. I loved it. My opportunity to visit a deaf school in Cleveland and give back to those kids through my own experience, letting them know that they can reach their dreams. That, first of all, that was amazing. You didn't say like, being cool with LeBron, like he's the homie now. You know what I mean? You didn't. It's like, it was that moment for you. And that was really awesome for me to be able to get a chance to read. And it's awesome to be able to get a chance to meet a human like you who really does care and advocate for people like us who just can't hear and who are criticized and in trouble or missing out on a lot, because there is a whole world that we're never going to be able to experience, like music. We're never going to understand music the way most people do and love it. We usually kind of turn it down because it's a little hard on us. You know what I mean? So I'm really grateful to people like you And I would love it if I can have you back on at some point and just be able to talk to you more, because I've read a lot about your books, and each book is quite interesting. And I would love to get into some of those. And those are very different topics than this conversation. But I'm very, very grateful for you being here and opening up the doors to this world. And it's not anything anyone should be ashamed of. And I know that you are involved with camps, for kids camps. Is that something you would like to talk about right now, and maybe just let people know what's out there for kids?
That's the thing is what I normally do is I've learned to be efficient that wherever I go and I give a corporate keynote or consulting, I'll usually also organize with a deaf community in that area for while I'm there to also spend a day with the kids and coach them in basketball, so that I'm killing two birds with one stone wherever I go, that my speaking circuit career is allowing me to reach a very broad audience and demographic, geographical range. And thank you. Also, I just want to say thank you for bringing up that memory, because on many mornings in my mid-20s, when I was still trying to make the MBA and I was so discouraged, after a while, pride doesn't really get you very far anymore. I've come so far that I know if I can just get across this final bridge, I will be able to use my life as a platform to inspire and also speak on behalf of many other marginalized people.
I love
that. And
that.
that's some mornings, Gigi, was all that I had.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I would love to join forces with you if I ever can. If you ever have an opportunity like that where I can join you in a location, I will fly there. I'll be there, because I am learning a lot about myself that I have not been advocating well enough for myself as far as my hearing disability. I have just found ways to adjust so it's easier on other people, because I don't like being that person that keeps having to say, can you repeat that? Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that? And then they're just like, fuck it. They don't say it anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I would love to be a part of that, to motivate youth, to let them understand you can have a really cool, successful life. You can be an NBA player. You could be 10 years on television and still be deaf. And it's going to be cool. It's going to be fine. And you're going to get on, you know? I would love to be a part of that. Thank you so much, Lance, for being here, for sharing and opening up with us. I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. And Gigi, I see what all this has cost you too. It's not easy to be a bridge. It's not. That we don't want to inconvenience the world, but you learn over time through enough hard knocks, that's what your job is. To inconvenience the world, to shatter it, so people learn to step more into empathy and compassion.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're here to do.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much, Lance. Anita's over here. She puts together these little games that we have. It's fun. We like to always make sure we leave the show with a little happy note, right?
Yes.
That's what our Anita's for.
Yes.
All right.
Actually, I have a lot of other questions for you too, but I'll that's just a whole nother.
She's obsessed with your height, so a lot of her silly questions were about just how do you...
Actually, if I can...
Well, we got time. Anita, ask me a question before you do your quote.
What? Okay, so you played not just for the NBA. You've played for the league. What was? Yeah. But what's the difference with because it's the same thing. Like you use your hearing aids for that? Like was it different? So why not the NBA?
What's the difference auditorially? Is that what you're asking?
So why did you play and it was fine, and then when you went to the NBA, it was tougher to you didn't want to keep the hearing aids in?
Every arena is so loud. Once you get to the college level, and then you're playing overseas, those overseas arenas in Turkey or Israel or Qatar, Ukraine, they're even more hostile than NBA arenas because they have the drums,
why were you successful?
They have the bonfires.
Okay. So why were you successful there in the other league and then not what happened that you just didn't want to keep the hearing aids in for the NBA? You said it was
oh no, I didn't keep my hearing aids in any of those places.
He didn't. He said on the court he can't for other reasons. He never was able to.
Get headaches or just
because when I was in ninth grade, I got headbutted in my hearing aid and it shattered in my ear canal. And I had to have stitches and a major concussion.
Okay.
And so from then I just didn't wear them for safety reasons anyway.
Okay. And then did in between, I think you stopped playing in 2015.
2015, I was going through a divorce and I retired to be with my son.
Okay. So did between now and or then and now, do you think that the technology has gotten better in any way?
The technology has gotten better. The Bluetooth stuff is pretty cool and all that. It's a pretty cool, good age to be deaf, I'll tell you.
Okay.
But while those things kick in, there are still just some things that no matter how good the technology gets, there's also part of my brain that only works as a lip reader. That's still trying to have me close my eyes and be an auditorial listener, an auditorial learner. Mm-hmm. My brain isn't programmed to really store and process information that way. That even if the technology continues to grow, and it will continue to get better and better, that my body and brain is adapted to learn to be a very visual learner and kinesthetic learner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. No more serious stuff. Let's get to the fun. Let's get to the fun.
I was like, you really got him thinking those were our game questions because this guy's like, this is fuck the game.
Okay, so game question is... Okay,
I enjoyed these questions. It's a good question.
Okay, so Forgive Me, I Have Sinned is our name of a game. And okay, so before I start with my first question, what is your shoe size?
15.
So the question is it true what they say about the size of your feet?
I've never had any complaints. We'll just say that.
Okay.
Very well said. Very PC. Very PC. Love that answer. Are you single? Is my next?
Yes. Are you single? This is my game.
What's your next? Okay,
my game. Sorry. Are you single?
Yes, I am single.
Okay.
She's from Ohio.
Okay. What part of Ohio?
Born and raised in Dayton. And then I went to Ohio State. So I lived in Columbus for about 4 years. And then I came to California. Yeah.
I liked my time in Ohio. I enjoy Ohio people.
How long were you? Yes, that's one thing I do miss is the people.
Yeah.
People are a little nice, genuine.
You're a very good person. She's like one of my sweetest, most purest friends. And it's because she's from Ohio. And she's very athletic, Lance.
I think you have to be when you're in Ohio because
she's bendy. She's very, very bendy. There's
nothing to do.
There was nothing to do but bend.
Well, what I appreciate is that this conversation is just as authentic as the show. So let's know that you're actually being the same person wherever you go. So it's good.
Oh my God. Ask him your questions.
Okay. When you played for the Cavaliers, was there ever a chance or a time that you had to pass the ball to LeBron and you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to take it myself and you just wanted...
No, but he passed it to me a few times. Usually I'm like, no, if Bron's open, I'm just going to give Bron the ball, but he was kind enough to give it to me a few times. And I said, okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll look cool holding the ball as you just pass it to me.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
I enjoyed my time with LeBron. He was a good dude. When I showed up, he saw my worn out size 15 D-League shoes. And he's like, he says, what size shoe are you? I said, 15. He says, me too. Here, take a pair of mine. And so he was, I always enjoyed my time with LeBron. He was a good dude. And people don't understand, he's one of the most intelligent people I've ever known, not just basketball players. He's so whip smart.
He is a smart guy. My dad always speaks very highly of LeBron. Yeah. My dad's a huge, huge NBA fan. And when I told him I was interviewing you, he made this face because he's a Persian dad. He made that like like that. Oh, okay. You got people coming on your show now, huh? I'm like, okay, Dad, step back. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Lance, for being here. I do want to leave with just saying one thing, that your condition with modern day medicine and advancements, we do have ways of checking pregnant women, for these situations. It is basically an anti-D antibody, which is overactive and in the mother's body, and it affects the fetus and the child that's growing inside, and they can just fix it with an injection these days. And it's very important for pregnant women to see doctors and get the medical need. I mean, I'm a mother. Even though I know that my hearing condition is not genetic, it was the biggest fears of mine, and I was making sure I was really on top of all these things. But thank you so much, Lance. Thank you for this time and this. You speak very well. You really do. I would love to get together with you and do something again.
Yeah.
It would be fun. Thank you both for having me, and thanks for showing up in the world.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back,
I get offended. I get very offended when people are like, she's deaf, she can't hear. I'm like, well, you're fucking fat. You shouldn't be eating, but I don't go around saying that at every restaurant. You know what I mean? But, like,
no, but that's the thing. I hate that.
Gigi, are you feeling okay?
I'm under the weather. This is actually the last of it. I took a COVID test yesterday and I'm completely negative, but my son that was his first cold. It freaked me out. I didn't know what to do. I was freaking out.
Scary.
Yeah, seeing him not be able to breathe was beating me up. Like, I have 100 electrical devices that are supposed to suction it, like vacuums, and I couldn't even make it work. I don't know, but he's better. I'm finally, on the flip side of it, and I'm feeling better. Thank you for asking. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
When my daughter had her first fever, I was like, what do I do? I can't let go of you. Like, how do I,
my God.
And now it's fine.
Do you remember that first fever?
Not her first fever. She was like 13 months or something like that.
Same as Eli. He's 15 months. Oh my goodness.
That's scary.
But he didn't like fever up. It was like close to a fever. So thank God it was like a quick bug. Bug.
But then like they're always usually happy and there's this little thing like mama.
Right. And then I caught it a day and a half after he got it. And I also have an autoimmune disease. So having any kind of a cold is scary for me. You know what I mean? So it's been rough, but I'm good. I'm excited to be talking to you, to be very honest. Anita over here, she's very excited as well because Anita is a dear friend of mine. Okay. And I see that Anita has a hard time sometimes understanding our world, and our worlds are so unique independently in the hearing loss community that, it's hard to sum it up, be like, well, this is what you do when someone's hard of hearing, because it doesn't work like that. There's so many different types of hearing loss. And I was just speaking to Lance Allred, which is the first NBA player to be legally deaf. He has 80% hearing loss from RH, complications at birth.
Okay.
And
RH,
I think it's pronounced Rhesus. Is that the right pronunciation? RHEU.
I'm terrible at pronunciation.
Yeah, it's a medical word. It's apparently the mother or the host is having some deficiency in a blood cell count and not enough stuff is getting to the baby. And it affects different things. Hearing is also one of them. So he got that. Okay. Your story is very interesting because you are not just an amazing pediatric audiologist, which we're going to get to, but you are actually someone who was born into this lifestyle. And your story, I was reading it. I was so intrigued when I was seeing the part about, if you bumped your head on something, it got worse. I was like, wait, I need to understand this. So if you don't mind telling us, your story.
Absolutely. So I was born in 1983 and they didn't do hearing screenings in the hospitals back then. Now, most of the states here in the United States, the hospitals screen the babies before you even leave the hospital.
Correct.
So because of that, I didn't get diagnosed until I was about 3 or 4 years old.
Okay.
My mom said my preschool teacher said I would sneak off on my own, either like during story time, and just either get a book for myself or I would sing in the corner. And she tells my mom, Mrs. Hu, you should get your daughter's hearing checked because I just have a few concerns. And my mom, she was floored. She was like, what are you talking about? I was answering her questions in Chinese and English. And it just surprised her. But as I look at patients now, I do see that because when your child is, 1, 2, 3, they're almost always near you.
Right.
So I had a mild hearing loss at that time.
Okay.
And with a mild hearing loss, you can still hear people if they're talking to you when they're like holding you or you're sitting on their lap. Of course, you're going to hear your parents. And of course, this is how I developed some speech and language in the beginning.
Right. Okay.
For me, I was born with something called Pendred syndrome. and enlarged vestibular aqueducts. So that cochlea, that snail shell portion in my ear, wasn't developed all the way.
Okay.
So for me, when I hit my head, my hearing loss would get worse. Okay. I would have to make my hearing aid programming stronger or get bigger hearing aids.
Okay.
I grew up afraid of hitting my head. I was like, something's going to happen anytime I hit my head. Like, I didn't want to do any.
But you're such a young child. And at that age, we're purposely hitting our heads on things and, running around being silly. So how does a child understand that concept?
You can. And how do you stop them?
Right. Right.
She wasn't gonna follow me around and like protect me every moment or wrap me up in bubble wrap, even though she probably wanted to.
Right.
But at the same time, it happened for me maybe every 2 years.
Okay.
And they didn't catch on until a little bit later, because back then we didn't have the technology to figure out exactly what was causing my hearing loss.
Right.
So it's not something it's not genetic. It's something that it's like no one else in your family has this.
My syndromes are genetic. So
it is.
For me, both of my parents it's a recessive syndrome.
Okay.
Both of my parents had to be carriers. So when they had kids, 1 in 4 chance of those kids would have that. And that was me.
Wow. Okay.
But I know some families that have 3 kids and they all have it.
Right.
That 25% chance. You never know.
Right.
You never know.
And your kids are fine.
So for me, my kids will always be carriers, but they will never have the type of hearing loss that I have because my husband doesn't carry it.
Okay.
And it was just a spit test for him. But I was kind of nervous, when I got pregnant. Oh, wait a minute. I almost forgot I had a syndrome. Wait, our kids, do we want to check it out?
Right.
Because sure, I've been told, you would be the greatest role model for your kids if they have hearing loss.
Right.
But there's a part of me that says, hey, I have the right to say I don't want them to have hearing loss.
Right.
Yeah. I know what I went through.
Right.
I don't want them to go through that. Right. But your son, my kids, something's going to challenge them.
Correct.
Something's going to set them back. But it's how they go through that situation and how they come out of it is really what defines their personality and shows their strengths, who they're going to be.
I think that's very true because I went most of my life, I would say, without being able to openly tell people I was hard of hearing. It was just survival. And I think I was also a very aggressive person growing up because I misconstrued or didn't understand half the things that were being said. I had my own set of anger issues on the side. So combining that together, it was, what the fuck did you say about me, bitch? Because I could swear I thought they said something. And my amount of lip reading became so profound at some point that, the noisier it was around me and the further away they were, the better it was for me to read their lips. And I just knew what everyone was saying. I was like, oh my God, he's talking about us. But you're right. You have to adapt to your environment and you have to be that structure for your child to have that proper environment. And I know that your parents were suggested for you to do the cochlear implant and they kind of passed up on that. Was that for any particular reason?
So I think I was a cochlear implant candidate around age 10, audiologically speaking. So when somebody is evaluated for cochlear implants, there's a lot of team players. It's a big decision and it's a significant surgery. You want the surgeon to look at you, the audiologist. And if you're a child, we take a look at speech and language delay, development, physical development, cognition, and also motivation. If I say to a 12-year-old, you're a great candidate, I think you'd be, I think you would do really well with it, but they don't want it. Who's to say you do the surgery and they just put the device in the drawer?
Right.
Okay.
So the older a person or a child is, you really want to take a look at and respect their motivations or non-motivations. You don't know what they're afraid of. If they perhaps don't even want to hear. Some people love being in silence or part of the deaf community or part of deaf culture.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I was speaking to my audiologist recently about, the movie The Sound of Metal, which for me was an amazing movie because I feel like that was the closest thing to remotely explaining a little bit of what it feels like and sounds like. But I was talking to her about it, and she was saying that that really is a culture of people that are in the deaf community that will go after people who get the implants or, devices. And I didn't understand, like, that's why wouldn't someone want to hear? Do they say this is God's doing and that's it? Why not better why wear clothing if that's the case? Why are you wearing clothes? Because God made you naked. So do you know, because I feel like you're in this field in a more professional way as an audiologist, do you know what these reasons are?
So personally, I'm not 100% in deaf culture or deaf community. I grew up in a hearing world. However, there are a couple of documentaries, Sound of Fury. There is a story about two brothers. One is hearing and one is deaf. Deaf brother married a deaf woman and had a deaf child. Hearing brother married a hearing woman and they had a deaf child, and they chose to go with the cochlear implant. So it really talks about the conflicts of within the family. But think about it. If you don't know something, you don't miss it.
Right.
So like, for example, I tell parents, it's harder to acquire a hearing loss than it is to grow up with one.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what I was
100%.
So I was probably the most happy child ever.
Right.
I can't represent the deaf community, but I can say, like, they see it as a gift. It's wonderful. And not everybody in the deaf culture is against cochlear implants.
Right. Right.
There really is. I interviewed somebody last week. She was a deaf child who was born into a hearing family. Her entire family learned sign language for her. It's beautiful. She went to Gallaudet University, met a deaf husband, and she has one deaf child and one hearing child.
Wow.
So her children get the best of both worlds because they have hearing family members. They're one hearing child, so he knows how to sign and uses spoken language. And their deaf daughter, they actually decided to get a cochlear implant, so she can have both worlds. But Emily, my friend, doesn't. Well, right now she doesn't have a cochlear implant. I don't know if she wants to.
Right.
So when you say, how come they don't want to hear whatever reasons,
It's different every time.
Maybe it's a part of their culture, what they grew up in. Well, if you say clothes, of course, there's nudist colonies out there too. you know, people who never want to wear clothes. Sometimes my kids never want to wear clothes.
Right. Can I ask you a question? On a personal stance, I have situations almost daily where people, again, still call me, or if I'm even sitting next to someone in a restaurant, and we all know restaurants are always playing music and there's cars driving by and all this and that. So I miss a lot sometimes. And I sometimes ask so many times for that person to repeat it that they get so frustrated that they just say, fuck it, never mind. And it sucks. And then the whole mood goes dark for me, because then I'm like, this is my issue that I'm having. Why couldn't you help me a little bit more? But in the same token, it's my issue. Why should it be theirs? So I'm kind of conflicted between the two, and I don't know how to do it, because they're aware that I have a hearing loss. They're aware I wear hearing aids, but still they get frustrated with me.
So if you say to someone, and think about it, what if they don't know anybody with hearing loss? They don't know what it's like. So in that moment, you're like, well, I can't hear. Say it again. And they're like, oh, I'm put on the spot. What does she want me to do? They might not know how to say it again. They might not know, or some people might not know that you want them to say it verbatim, the same way they did, or do you want them to rephrase it?
I get offended. I get very offended when people are like, she's deaf, she can't hear. I'm like, well, you're fucking fat. You shouldn't be eating, but I don't go around saying that at every restaurant. You know what I mean? But
they don't know. So you have allowed in a very clear voice. So how would they know that you can't hear them? And some survival mechanism I used to use was I would either talk loudly and take over the conversation, or I would point all of the questions at them so that I wouldn't have to work to listen.
Right.
They wouldn't know I didn't hear something, smile and nod during their answer. And they, they're like, oh, how would they know?
Yeah.
But something I said last week, I gave a script of, and I was aggressive and blunt and rude before too, and I still am sometimes. But I tell my children, or I tell my patients and adults, what you have to say is important to me. Could you either write that part down? Could you slow down your speech? Can we turn the music down? Or whatever. Right now I'm using it's called Ava. It's a closed captioning app. So you and me are talking into my phone and I have it captioning right now. I'll show you if you can see it.
Oh, I need that.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh my
And
God.
you
I didn't
can use
even know
that in the restaurants. So see how it's saying exactly what I'm saying.
I love that. I didn't
really-
even know that. Honestly, I think that is probably what my issue has always been. I was about 12, 13 years old when they discovered I have a hearing loss, and it was left alone until, later in my late 20s, where it was, again, I was tested periodically through my life, but because it would never change in the type of hearing loss that I had, the doctor said, I sent you actually my chart. I got my doctor. I was like, can you send it? I wanted to send it to Doctor Who. So it's, they said, yeah, this is something that's usually a birth defect or extreme, like some sort of extreme trauma to your head, like a car accident or something. And I was like, I've never had that. So
regardless of what caused your hearing loss, you can do something about it. You said you've been trying different types of devices. Maybe something else would be a better option. You don't know. Work with the audiologist to see what would give you the best access. Your hearing loss is significant. You have a moderately severe hearing loss. That means you're missing so many sounds. You need them louder, but not necessarily like if you go to the movie theater and they turn the volume up.
Right.
Is it Anita or Amita? Anita, if they're turning that sound and blasting it on, or if you're at a concert, it's not clear. It's distorted. It's too much. So if there's something that Gigi has and you're saying it louder, well, their tone of voice disappears.
Yeah.
She thinks you're angry at them. If you're just being louder, then you start fighting because it's like, whoa, you can't hear me.
That's usually us anyways. Some people hate, I hate FaceTiming, and I do it for you. That's sometimes.
But you still call me.
But I call her a lot of time.
You still call me a lot.
But it's out of habit. It's like, I just hate FaceTiming anyone.
Well, I'm not deaf out of habit though.
But I should, yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm like, and then we're like talking, and then you get mad and angry, and I get frustrated.
I'm like, I don't know what you're fucking saying. I don't even know. I'm just on the phone.
And she hangs up, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, Gigi, there are some devices that you could try. I don't know what would be best appropriate for your hearing loss.
I'm using the worst one right now. I'm using the Lyric, and I'm only using the Lyric because it's the easiest and most convenient. The doctor puts them in, 3 months later, takes it out. And they're the worst.
Quality first.
I know.
Okay. And you'll be surprised. Like I can stream my phone through both ears.
Yeah.
I can have conversations in a dark car while I'm driving or whatever. And my hearing loss, I would feel a fire truck before I heard it if I didn't have my devices on.
Wow. Okay, this is another question. Back to the game. Have you ever used your hearing, like impairment or loss, whatever, to get out of a date growing up? Like, did you ever, like, it was a bad date in your life?
She's like, hell yeah. You're like hell yeah, shaking her head like, yeah.
Yeah, how did you get out of the date?
Not to get out of a date, but I've used it like to get out of doing chores. What do you mean? Like, I didn't use. I've been told, my friends in grad school would tell me when we're going out at a bar or a party with friends, they're like, Michelle, 3 guys just tried to hit on you. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know. But it's great for sometimes I had a boyfriend. I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
I've never used it I've used it to get out of doing things or maybe
that was my other question,
no
like getting out of a test or something, educate. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this is the last fun one.
Oh, here we go.
What has been the worst kitchen disaster? Because you are a chef and you've gone into the culinary school. What's like the worst?
That was amazing.
Like, what's like the biggest disaster in the kitchen?
Oh gosh. I think for me the most dangerous is either steam or a mandolin. Like taking a pot off of boiling water, and I didn't burn my face or anything, but my arms have been burned and I've sliced all of my fingertips off with mandolins, and it's horrible. They grow back, but it's bad. And then probably the hardest thing was I had a culinary school final, and it was the dessert final, and I was trying to do mousse, but I was by a window and it was like 100 degrees that day, and the mousse kept melting.
Oh no!
I can't do this.
Speaking of melting, the chocolate.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Thank you so much for playing Anita's game, and thank you so much for this educational, informative, and very personal conversation. Thank you so much, and I will see you on Instagram.
Yes,
absolutely. Reach out whenever questions you have.
Go Buckeyes! Go Ohio State!
Thank you. Oh, I really like Doctor Who.
Me too.
I feel like we could have spoken for hours.
Right? Great stories.
Great experience, firsthand experience for herself. And I do feel like we just started brushing the surface of everything, right? Because there's so much to talk about in her past, in my past, and there was so much to talk about in Lance's past and in my past. And just being able to go between the two. Mm-hmm. Both of them have different stories, different upbringings, different types of hearing loss, different routes and professions in life. But both of them became successful because of their disabilities. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it was just pretty cool to see that, together to see that. And I'm just wondering, where's my success? Like 10 years of Shaw's.
You made my list. I have a list, from Thomas Edison, Beethoven, like Jane Lynch. I didn't
want you to remind me of the people who are brilliant. I'm saying about me?
You're number 6 on my list.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah, you've done a lot.
Let me see that. Let me see it on your list. That I'm number 6.
It might take me a second to find it. Hold on.
Without a pen, though, right? You don't need a pen to find it, do you?
No.
Let me see where my name is number 6 on that list.
Oh my God, look. Who is that? Oh my God, look over there. Look over there.
Where?
Oh my God.
It's Ursula. She's coming to take your seat.
See, this is on my list right
Ursula's coming to take your place because you're...
Look. 1, 2, 6.
I'm number 6.
She's on the list.
I'm number 6. Oh, she really did have it in there, didn't she?
You've done a lot. You've and just even this, like coming out and sharing with the world what you're going through, and is a big step. Like you're sharing and you're getting other people to
do
be okay
that
with a disability, be okay with RA, be okay with hearing. So it's like you've done a lot.
Yeah, I feel like that's what I'm trying to do now, and I feel like I needed things like Shaws of Sunset, and I still need it to help me. It gave me this platform that now I feel like I'm able to put it to some educational use, informative use. And there's still so much left to talk about this field and so many other fields. So if you have a specific topic that you want me to talk about, write it in the reviews. Let me know what you're thinking. Yeah. What should I do more of, less of here? Should Anita date Lance? Should we go there and, pimp her out? I think we should.
Yeah.
Subscribe,
Wait,
please.
But before we do that, I need dating help. So we need to do the whole speed dating advice before, so I don't screw it up with Lance. I feel like I have one shot with him. Let's take that out. Okay.
No. We're leaving that in because I want Lance to hear.
Oh my God. Okay, I don't know. Anyways.
Lance, she only has one shot with you.
One shot.
And she's going to practice. Oh, no pun intended. Yeah. You're going to have to practice basketball.
I got 5 seconds to play my whole basketball career, and I had an air ball. I'm not a good basketball player. That's one
not
sport.
A story to
That's
share.
The one sport I fucking suck at. I'm like a...
You're very good at sports.
Every sport except basketball. But I made the team. And my award for
they never played you because you only had 5 seconds.
I was not good, but I got the award for being the fastest runner on the basketball team. So that was fun.
Subscribe.